Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life.
What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to the 817 podcast. We have a pivot, a change in the world of today of the 817 podcast. Jimmy is somewhere, Barbados, Bahamas, Europe. I don't know where Jimmy's at, but Jimmy and his family are out for the next couple weeks. But I'm really excited because I think we have someone here who knows a lot about Fort Worth, has some great perspectives, and is a friend of the pod. We have Ryan Tiglas. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on. I've always wanted to use the phrase of long-time listener, first-time caller. Finally here. Now Jimmy can actually hear me directly instead of just my text midway through listening to the podcast.
Well, we're excited to have you. How do you know Jimmy, and what is your take on Fort Worth?
So Jimmy and I went to TCU together. We, have the same group of friends, and we've, really reconnected over the past few years over Fort Worth and Fort Worth politics and just our love of local government. And it's something that's really become a passion of ours ever since we really committed to being a part of the TCU community. When you graduate from college, you kind of move around a little bit, kind of getting used to what's going to be your home. And now that, we're both kind of settled here in Fort Worth, we're really taking an interest in what is going on. And for me, when you ask, what is my view of Fort Worth, it's opportunity. Fort Worth has an awesome opportunity to become a really great city. We're growing at such a massive rate that there's so many people coming in and so many, opportunities just to really be better. And I want to see us capitalize on those things. I don't want us to necessarily cling to the past too much, but I don't want to forget the past either. I think there's a balance that Fort Worth can achieve. And, there's some things happening right now that I think are promising. And I'm excited to see where everything goes. My background is, I used to work in campaigns. I worked on Wendy Davis's campaign. I used to work in her district office here. Moved up to DC, did some political fundraising, came back down here, and now I work at TCU. And it's really fun being back in Fort Worth. Been here since 2018, and just really enjoy this community. And I'm excited to see where things go.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to have your political campaign kind of experience and background on the pod to bring a lot of context to the things we talk about. Last question, man, is around what do you think the pod gets right? And then what do you think the pod needs to work on? Hey, you crazy too. I think you guys are missing this, or, give us some direction.
I think y'all are doing awesome work. I mean, this is really exciting because I love that finally someone is as passionate about local infrastructure as I am. And, I'm glad that someone else likes to watch city council meeting, and when they talk about zoning, they're like, yes, I love zoning conversations.
Yeah.
So I think that's just awesome.
Makes sense why you and Jimmy are friends. Yeah,
because who else am I going to? It started with just a text of I need to talk to somebody about zoning. And my wife keeps telling me to shut up. And so that's where this relationship just kind of has grown a lot over the past few years between me and Jimmy. And I really like what y'all are doing. I love what y'all did during the mayoral race last year. And I just think you're doing some really good work. And I like the care that y'all put into it. And it really shows how passionate y'all are about Fort Worth.
Yeah. It's funny because, we always are giving Fort Worth its accountability and challenging it probably more than any other pod locally. And we probably pissed off someone from every section of the world of Fort Worth. And I feel like if we don't, then people think we have favorites. And I think it's the only thing we care about is just, that Fort Worth, like you said, lives up to its potential. I feel like it's an eighth grader. Fort Worth is like an eighth grader that's 5'1" with a size 14 shoe. And we just make sure that you're going to actually be, you're going to grow into your body and you're going to actually become a transformational athlete or something like that. That's kind of where we are.
Yeah, we're a pup with big paws, or a kitten that can be a big bear.
Yeah. Well, go ahead and bring us in for the first story.
Yeah, so the first story, it's kind of like a recap of what y'all have been talking about over the past few weeks, but it's redistricting. The map getting approved at City Council, and my thought is that if I were to go back to 2019 and I were to tell myself that Fort Worth is going to approve a map and they're going to do so unanimously, and it's going to be a process where we see every iteration of the map. We have an opportunity for public comment on every iteration of the map, and they include communities and try to keep neighborhoods together. I would take that every time. It might not have been the exact process that we had maybe hoped for. Some people want, like, to just be the independent redistricting, independent committee, and that just be the one we use. That obviously didn't happen. And there's, pros and cons to that. But I think overall, I'm happy with the process because it is way more than I expected, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It was very transparent. Got to see every iteration of the map, and I saw where they were going. And you saw how passionate people were about that. And it was like both the community members and then the city council members, breaking down when discussing these maps, really showing that they cared about who they represented. Overall, I'm happy with the process. And one thing I really enjoyed was, I don't know if enjoyed is the right term here, but Elizabeth Beck said that there was a begrudging acceptance, is I believe the term she used. And I kind of think that if everybody on city council has a begrudging acceptance to the map, that's a win. That's a good thing, because if someone is overjoyed, that generally means that someone else is absolutely livid. And that's just not the best policy necessarily. When everybody kind of has that begrudging acceptance, it normally means that y'all came to a compromise that was, for the most part, relatively fair. And so I think that was a good thing. I've been impressed with Mayor Parker throughout all of this because, she took a back seat earlier on and then realized that she needed to take a more active role, be that person that leads the compromise push. And that is more difficult than most people realize, because the Fort Worth mayor doesn't actually have that much inherent power. She's essentially an at-large city council member with more responsibility, but doesn't actually have that much more concentrated power.
Yeah.
And so I was impressed by her leadership through that.
Yeah. No, I think and so they're calling the new map Anna, as that's the name. And my kind of, it's we're here. We had some people come in trying to get worked up about it. We have the one district with a 58.8% Hispanic voting age population, which hopefully that can allow us to have some, Latino representation. They mentioned Mayor Maddie Parker, Gina Bivens, didn't mention who could fit that role, but they talked about a potential. I think there's someone in their brains and that friends and colleagues that could be a Latina running for council, which would be super cool. My big thing is in the paper, there was, I don't know if it was the Fort Worth Report or the Star Telegram. They were quoting some people from far north Fort Worth, like, I feel like, some of the business people and the alliance people, and around how they're like, we only, 10 years from now, you're going to see a map that poorly represents our area when we're going to be growing really fast. And I just think that you got that push. I mean, it was like the alliance business professionals doing all, like, saying they weren't impressed with the map. And I just like, well, how about y'all like campaign for like far north, like North Fort Worth as a city, Alliance, Texas, go ahead. Like, it's not fair. You guys, I had people who I work with in town this week. We flew them in for like just a quarter meeting, and Indiana, Atlanta, all of them are from like different like big cities. And I was like, we had to drive to Oklahoma City, and we had to drive back to DFW for meetings. And on our way back from Oklahoma City, I said, guys, we're in Fort Worth, Texas. This is where we are. And I was like, and I showed them the map. Here's where your hotel is. This is where you're staying downtown. We're 48 minutes away. 48 minutes away, and we're in the city of Fort Worth. So if you're mad that you got one district, you shouldn't be fighting for another district. You should be fighting to be your own city. All right? That's my take.
I think, like, would it be great to to build a map for the future? Yeah, but you got to build the map for the city you have. The current map that we voted on in the last election didn't represent what the city was at that point.
Yeah.
Now the current map is going to represent what the city is now. That's why you do redistricting.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose.
Yeah. And North Fort Worth, like the people are saying, like, I feel left out. You should. You're way out there. Like it's not like it would be weird if the hub of the city felt left out. Like it's like so it's just like it's not fair for anyone. Like I agree they should have more representation, but it shouldn't be impacting where the city is. Like it's just to me it seems like I look at Atlanta has like Alliance is where Decatur, Georgia is. It's like go be a different city. It's fine, and I think it'll work out. But yeah, I think we got a map, and people are excited. People are not excited, and like you said, it's a good place.
I think we should all just strive for begrudging acceptance.
Yep.
I think that's what we should all should be hoping for.
In life, in life. That's how I feel like going to the airport with American. So it's good. It's good. So here we go. Let's go ahead and go to the next story. The next story we're going to hit is kind of around the bond, and I'm interested in you kind of talking about this because I'm sure you and Jimmy riff on this, and a lot of this things. Every time Jimmy's gone, I'm like, man, this is a story Jimmy's going to like. And so the city is proposing a $560 million bond, which will make positive impact on Fort Worth without impacting residents' tax rate. The city staff will visit community centers across Fort Worth over the next month to answer residents' questions about the proposed bond. It's a process that is similar to the recent bond like Fort Worth ISD. What we see on the bond, what we're going to be voting for on May 7th are 5 propositions. Proposition A asks for $369.2 million for streets and transportation infrastructure. Proposition B asks for $123.9 million for parks and recreation improvements. Proposition C asks for $12.5 million for public library improvements. Proposition D asks for $39.3 million for police and fire facilities. Proposition E asks for $15 million for land purchases to preserve natural spaces. Come on now. Now, here's the thing. Fort Worth ISD just recently went through something like this, as we remember, where they narrowly approved a $1.5 billion package. We're talking $1.2 billion of that being passed by 57 votes. Crazy how important elections is, and why we need to get more people to vote. But yeah, let me kind of give, what is your overall feelings of Fort Worth and how we fund and prepare our city when it comes to bonds and roads and parks and public services?
My thought is always for most of these is they're necessary. Like, when we're talking about improving parks and public libraries and, fire facilities and whatnot, those are all good things. And, we spend a lot of money on roads, but we also need better roads. At the end of the day, we need better streets. And we, as Fort Worth continues to grow, you have to reach out to those people. If you're going to have a city that is going all the way up north, and you're going to have to provide police and fire services up north. And that's just the way the city's growing. So when it comes to propositions like this, I mean, yeah. And you're absolutely right with the voting thing. This election is going to be on May 7th in a year where we're going to have at least 3, if not 4 elections. We'll have 4 elections with the runoff, but not everyone will need to vote in them necessarily. Mm-hmm. But that's a lot of elections. That's a lot of time to get people to go out to the polls consistently.
Yeah.
And so this will be a close bond election, I would imagine.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts on those allocations?
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of things are reactionary. I mean, government is often reactionary, which is why I don't think I could ever be in government. Obviously I think police and fire already have enough of our tax dollars, specifically police. Library improvements, like I'm at a point in this world where like people don't go into buildings. Like we just need to build digital infrastructure, like give everybody a Netflix subscription or something. I don't know. That's $12.5 million. Proposition B, Parks and Recs. That one's big. I think if anything, I feel like becoming a more walkable city, a more interconnected city. That's big. And then the land purchases to preserve natural spaces, that excites me because I think there's some great areas in the city still in the loop that could be super cool to connect to the rest of the city. So we'll see what they're trying to do there. But I know me and Jimmy are in the Meadowbrook area, so Tandy has a good couple acres next to it that they could really maybe accelerate that park. Would be cool. So that's kind of fingers crossed, if you would, on maybe they're gonna beef up Tandy.
Yeah. You got a few thoughts going in my head. First of all, with Netflix cracking down on password sharing, I think we're all going to need public accounts in order to afford it. So,
no more using your no more using your favorite auntie's Netflix subscription, right? You got to. Yeah, my dad's gonna freak out and call me and be like, "What's your Netflix code?" And I'm like, "The Illuminati won't let us do that anymore, Pops. I need you to figure something else."
And then I love the natural spaces. My wife and I went up to the nature preserve I have up near White Settlement.
Oh, great stuff. Yeah, that's great.
Buffalo up there.
Yeah,
we were driving with the dog, and my dog Waffle was what is that thing? That's a weird looking cow.
What kind of dog do you have?
We have a golden retriever. She's my best friend.
So to be honest with you, the buffalo at the nature reserve is probably the size of Waffle. If you ever actually see the buffaloes,
they're not all that big. That's true.
Those buffalo need some help.
If you like cute animals, there are some baby buffaloes that are quite adorable there.
Yeah. But, no, I love that place. I haven't been in a while, and my dog loves it too.
But if we can have more stuff like that, I think that's awesome. I love the idea of getting Fort Worth out, being active. Really just taking advantage of the natural space we have around us. And the library side of things, I think it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I think that the communities that have those libraries, I think it's an excellent opportunity to utilize those spaces and bring people together.
Yeah.
And I really like a lot of this is focused on community.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's really important to make people feel connected to the city. And I think that's a good place to be.
Yeah.
I like where this is going for the most part. We'll see how the election goes. We'll see how they try and get out the vote for those things. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, looking at some of this, it says when the city formed its bond program, the construction and restoration of roads were made a top priority. Specifically, staff are looking to make improvements to roads in minority majority and super minority majority areas, Venables said. A minority majority are census blocks with a minority population of 50%. A super minority majority is a census block with minority population of 75% or greater. The Prioritization Committee also considered whether the project would improve racial and cultural disparities in the city as a whole. So a lot of what you're saying there around the community and being more intentional on who we're building for and how we're building. I don't know if you saw these 10 roads, the most dangerous roads on that list. I don't know how you feel about them.
My wife can attest. I complain about the roads often. She's convinced I've never been satisfied with the road. And I think quality of roads actually does a lot for a city. It makes it more welcoming. People know it's one of those things that people don't necessarily notice when you have really nice roads, but they do notice when you have crap roads.
Yeah.
And so if you can take these 10 and fix them up, that's going to do a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I can we mentioned this on the pod before, but when you're taking the Henderson exit, and then the Google GPS tells you to stay left, or it tells you and it's 3 roads, and it's one is to go back to Lancaster, and then the one in the middle is the one you actually want to take to go towards West 7th, and hit and go towards that way, and it's Google, people are listening to their map, the things what is it saying? And we have so many roads like that where I feel like you exit and you're just massively confused. And then if you're new, you're probably man, y'all's roads are crazy, so it definitely happens.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when I moved here, I became much more of a visual GPS person than an auditory. And it's because I was like, oh, it means I need to be in the middle lane specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and go to the final short story, and then we're going to move into the big story. I'll let you take the big story since I think you're excited for that as well. And let me kind of dive into the next story. This is definitely a Jimmy story right here. I wish Jimmy was here because Jimmy would rant about this. I'm not a big soccer person. If you're Jimmy's friend, I'm assuming you are. So he said, you know, that he's been kind of against this idea of a soccer complex, but I'm interested to know what he would think about if he was excited about this. But international soccer could be coming to Fort Worth. This is Star Telegram post. And it's basically about how 4 members of the city council are preparing to pitch the city to FC Barcelona. Council members Kerry Moon, Jared Williams, Michael Crane, and Chris Nettles are all scheduled to travel to Barcelona from April 13th to 15th. Well, that's kind of sad that they're only there for 2 days. Hopefully they find some personal time as well. It's a part of a push to attract an international brand to raise Fort Worth's profile as a destination for youth soccer. The 4 will attend FC Barcelona's Youth Academy tournaments to discuss Fort Worth's efforts to become a player in sports tourism. They're talking about the pitches, the complex, 20 fields, youth soccer, 100,000 visitors annually, $16 million to Fort Worth. And with kind of partnering with someone potentially, it's really to help create professional players. FC Barcelona is doing something like this already in Miami. And yeah, what is your take?
So I've got a couple thoughts. First of all, if you're going to try to make international soccer work, FC Barcelona is a pretty good partner for that.
Absolutely.
Like, that's one of like 5 clubs in the world you would want to go with. And 2, I think the stadium can be pretty divisive, but if you can separate the stadium part of this from the youth complex side of things, I think the youth fields is actually really important. We don't have a setup like that in Fort Worth. If you have a kid that is in like a travel soccer team, you really got to go to Dallas to get into that type of tournament complex. And I've got a special connection to that type of complex because I grew up in Phoenix, and actually less than a mile from where my parents live is one of these massive soccer complexes. It's called Reach 11. And they do tournaments, and we get a lot of teams coming in from California. And it actually does bring in a lot of people. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. This is all just from my personal experience, but there's a lot of teams that come in and they do soccer and lacrosse and other field sports. And it is a good thing. And also, like, it helps that community because there's also less than a mile the other direction from my folks is the biggest resort in Phoenix. It's the JW Marriott. And so all the people that are going to those tournaments go and stay at that resort. And so it really helps build up that part of the community. And so I think that if we got the youth complex, the stadium, there's a lot of debate to that. But the youth complex in particular, I'm very much behind that idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for me, I think to me, what I start thinking about is who is this for? Who's competing at those soccer places? Is it kids that can afford it? Is these clubs for families that can afford to do these kind of things? It sounds expensive. It sounds like things that a lot of kids who probably can't afford would love to do that in the sense of, my biggest fear is that we just create a big complex and it's servicing all the color kids and the Alito kids and when we still have a strong Latino population of kids who do know soccer, our football fields, high school football fields and middle school fields around our neighborhood in Meadowbrook, people are playing soccer all like Saturday nights, trucks up, tons of people out. So soccer is a part of the fabric, and that's probably my thing is who's that servicing? And then also, my other thing, why I'm probably more like, I'm all down for Fort Worth pitching itself to people. I think that's what we need to be doing. But I think tourism, we're over, and me and Jimmy always have this battle on, should we be fighting like for tourism, or should we, instead of going to FC Barcelona, we're going to Silicon Valley, and we're pitching software companies to move their 200 employees here. things like that. Because I don't know, tourism's very reactionary, and I don't know. Oftentimes, I feel like it doesn't work when it comes to like sports teams. Like where, I mean, really the only time it works is when your name is LeBron James, or like Giannis Antetokounmpo or whatever. So it's like it really, I don't know. I think that's the part. But at the end of the day, like you said, kid development, 20 soccer fields, all that is good. I just, how many kids are going to make money playing soccer? How many kids are, how much does the, top soccer kids can make? And a lot of that is really hard to do, where I think like, I don't know if it's economic for Fort Worth or for kids and families to invest. And I've seen that. I don't know if you've seen it, like in Plano, or, I have family who's like in cheer camps, and they spend all their life on cheer camps, and every weekend AAU basketball. And then like the kids go to Tarrant Community College because they don't know where they're going to go after spending $50,000, over, 2 years on club sports. So I don't know. I just feel like it's I'm excited to see what happens because, like you said, FC Barcelona is cool.
Yeah, and I think that it all depends on who your partner is for that. So if you can get a big fish like FC Barcelona, I'm more confident that I'm willing to give it a much longer leash because I think there's more of a chance that it succeeds. And you're talking about like travel teams. My brother played travel baseball, so I grew up traveling to go watch my more naturally talented brother play sports, and having to go to like Palm Springs. It's really boring as a kid. Palm Springs.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say baseball.
When you're 9.
I thought you were going to say baseball. So,
no,
I can tell you're a baseball fan. You got a hat on and a Diamondback shirt. So I was being sarcastic.
I grew up just kicking back, spitting sunflower seeds. That's a good Saturday afternoon for.
There you go.
Me.
There you go.
But I think with the soccer in particular, it's about doing more than just the fields. You got to do everything that goes with it. So it can't be just build the stadium and expect that to be enough. It can't be just building the fields and being like, all right, we're good. You got to build around it and make sure there's hotels available for people to stay at. You got to make sure that you're including the community in that, and that there's a way to include the rest of Fort Worth in utilizing those fields, making sure you're including all of the different communities in Fort Worth. And if you do the work on that, I think you can make it worth it pretty quickly.
Yeah. We'll see, because I'll be interested to know what Jimmy's thoughts are. And man, what a crew going to Barcelona. Kerry Moon, Jared Williams, Michael Crane, and Chris Nettles. Should be a TV show right there. I can see it like an office show with like those four.
I want to see. I would love to like hear the flight there. Are they all sitting together, and on the way back, they're all like in different parts of the plane?
Yeah. You want to bring us home to the big story and how you feel about it?
So the big news this week is Reata is going to be leaving downtown due to a landlord dispute. And y'all kind of talked about this on the pod before with what's going on with downtown. But this is a big deal. Now it's not going to happen until 2024, I think, is when the lease ends. But they've announced that they're going to, be leaving and looking. And the more I read about this, there's a lot going on in this story. I mean, the big thing that jumps out is the parking price of $21 for valet parking. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And and then they're kind of expected to put that onto the customer through their meal, and that's a big expense. And also the other part that really stuck out to me was that apparently the landlords didn't want to meet with them. I saw that in the Fort Worth Report article, I believe, that they had tried to talk with them, and the emails were left on read. That's just shocking to me, because the Reata is more than just like any other restaurant in that area. The Reata is a big deal. It's a very nice restaurant. It's a great space. It's great for events. They do catering. So it's a big name to be leaving downtown after all the other places that have left downtown. And it just kind of, makes you wonder, what is downtown going to look like a year and a half from now? What's going to be left as far as those big restaurants that attract people in?
Yeah. I mean, you have, we had Bird leave, Taco Diner leave, Taverna leave. So yeah, I agree with you. This is huge. I mean, downtown is, what is it? I don't know. And I think this is why we kind of brought it up with Jimmy, but I'm like, what is a downtown if people aren't going to work anymore? And this is all skylines. Are like skylines becoming archaic art of cities, emblems that we're just going to keep and restore? Because when you got less people driving for work to go downtown, you got more people saying, hey, I don't need to travel to the conference. I'm just going to buy me the virtual pass and I'm going to sit at home and do it. And then you have people. I was talking to my friend the other day. We were at Buffalo Bros watching the Final Four, and I was like, when's the last time I actually went into a store and bought clothes? I don't remember. So it's just like, I just think where the world is going, it makes it really complicated for all downtowns, not just Fort Worth. But that's why I think why getting businesses, and people who work downtown together, but even that's becoming difficult. And so I don't know. I don't know how do you solve this, because if Reata can't do it, who can?
Right. And I think the pandemic, what it did is it accelerated a lot of trends. And one thing in particular that came out of the pandemic is people really, they think more about what they do. Like if they're going to go out to do something, it's not as on a whim as it used to be.
Facts.
And so that's a big challenge for businesses and, retail and restaurants, and that you have to attract people to come to you. But it has to be easy. It has to be a lot easier than it used to be. It's not the same way with Cincinnati Square where you could before just go park downtown pretty easily and then walk around and there's a lot going on. It's not as simple as it was a few years ago before the pandemic. And to make parking harder, that's a bold decision because people don't want to pay for parking.
Yeah.
And they definitely don't want to pay a lot for parking.
Yeah.
Especially when the primary thing they're doing is having a meal.
Yeah.
That is not that typically that long of an excursion. And so if you're going to, you want to make sure that it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. You also, one of my best friends lives in Vegas. And I think one of the coolest things when I'm in town in Vegas and he picks me up or whatever is they just swipe their Nevada card and everything's free, downtown, because the strip weren't getting locals to come. And so, I that just makes sense. There's parking is, annoying, and so why would you make it hard?
It's a frustrating thing. I used to live in DC and I had a bunch of friends who live in Adams Morgan. And if anyone's ever been to ADMO, you know that it's the absolute worst for parking. And I had a rule that whenever I was invited to a party up there, I would drive up, and if I couldn't find parking 2 blocks north or 2 blocks south of where I was going, I would go home. I was like, I'm done. I'm giving up on the parking. It's not worth it to me. And so I think you really have to go out of your way to make it easier to access. And whether that is making parking more available or making public transportation more reliable, it's a scale. You have to commit to one of those things, and not having a strong case on either one, that makes it very difficult for people to want to go downtown or for those businesses to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very hard too. 'Cause I brought people in from our work for a quarter meeting, and this is their first time in Fort Worth. And I was really excited to sell it to them, had them stay downtown, but still it's just kind of not lively. They're just talking their biggest thing is I can't believe we're walking in the middle of the road after the restaurant, and we're just all we're just walking in the middle of the road and there's no cars or nothing. And it was a Thursday night, it wasn't a weekend. But then also, just how much driving and connect, like how spread out the Metroplex is. Even like I had to pick them up from the airport. Then we had to go to Dallas, and like they're just blown away how spread out everything is. And I even think not just Fort Worth, like DFW is such a hard place to make it a cool trip to visit. Like I just think like if someone's like, oh, I want to explore Dallas Fort Worth, it's like they must have a car. They have to then get a rental car purchase. They must. And then still, like, it's not easy to know where something is at that is cool to go to. It's like nothing's very like walkable where you're going to hit like, these are the 4 cool things to go to. So it's just like, I don't know. I think it's just all very difficult how spread out everything is. And even Maddie talking about this, by the way, this is my kind of last kind of part and rant on it is, maybe this could be one of the things that go wrong in her legacy in Fort Worth is the health of downtown. I think like I just don't know how she has so many more priorities in the sense of education, economic development, in the sense of recruiting companies to Fort Worth to grow in Fort Worth. So I just don't know how big of a priority or on top of the mind that that getting downtown right is going to work. I don't know. I just because she looks like she says she's faithful, like she thinks they're going to do it. They have that next big idea program, which is kind of cool, but it's kind of scary. That's when you're desperate. When you're like, yo, local people, if you got an idea, like come down, we'll give you some space for free. And we'll like that to me is like a big red flag. Like that's concerned. So I don't know.
Yeah. And it's hard also, for Maddie, because on a lot of these issues, you can come up with ideas on how to fix them.
Yeah.
Or like what the process would be. With downtown is much harder because there's not as much control there. There's other people you have to work with. It's much more of a relationship thing than a policy thing. And so I don't necessarily know how do you go about doing that? That's a much harder task than some of the other priorities.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have no idea. Reata was wondering where should their new iconic location be? What was your thoughts?
I would say Reata's playing this perfectly. Like they're being open about why they're leaving. They're giving all of the reasons and they are, crowdsourcing. Where do you want us? I think there's a lot of cool areas they would be. If I were Reata, I would try to stay somewhere kind of relatively central where they were before, just because I mentioned earlier, they have a big catering business as well. So you want to make sure that you are near to where a lot of those potential big event customers will be. So probably near South Side is probably where I would be looking.
Yeah, that's what scares me. I was like, that's what scares me. It's because
that's the default.
Yeah. Well, and it's also like what to me is like South Side and is like to me becoming like a place that's not Cowtown and Stockyards, and like you bring Reata over. It's just like, go to the Stockyards. Like, go over. If you ain't gonna be downtown, like, don't. Like, I just bringing that Midland energy to Southside would be so sad. Like, it would be so sad to Southside. Like, stop. We don't need cowboys everywhere. We don't need it. We don't need Cowtown and Southside. Let us have something that feels somewhat city-ish. And like, that's the last place. I mean, but I agree with you. Like, that's where like the foot traffic is, and that's where locals go. But my argument is like, I haven't ate at Reata in years
because of parking.
Yeah, right. And it's like, but I don't know if I actually would ever choose Reata. Like, I don't know if like, I'm not trying to dog Reata because I'm not saying like I love the space, the iconicness. I think they act like they have more power than they really do because I don't think like I'm not going out my way to go to Reata. Like, if I'm downtown, Reata's my spot. Cool. We got people, beautiful setup, great drinks, great setup, cool. But you're competing against Cheesecake Factory, and you're competing against, Chris Roos and other things. I just don't know if I'll go. Like, I mean, like, if I'm driving, then you just go, like, now you're competing with Bonnell's or, like, you're competing with something else. Like, you're just, I don't know. I don't just see, I don't know. Locals, what's your take though? I feel like you're more connected to this than I would be.
Well, I would say that that's where they want to compete, though. They want to be going up against Cheesecake Factory because they know that you can go to Cheesecake Factory in any city in America. So for them, that is where they want to compete. If they go up to the stockyards, there's a lot more similar competition.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think for them in particular, you kind of hit on it. It's a place you go with people, like when you have people in town or it's like a special occasion. And so I think in that near south side, near the hospitals, that is kind of, a little bit of, there's some of that there. I'll have to think harder on where exactly would be the ideal location for them. I don't think that they'll end up doing stockyards just because, the culture fit is there. But like I said, that's where everybody else like them is. And so
But that's what I'm thinking. If you leave downtown, you're no longer competing against Cheesecake Factory. Now you're competing against Wishbone, Flint, whatever that place is called. I went there the other day. It was all right. But it's I feel like it's, I don't know. I
don't know. What if they went out to like Clear Fork?
That's what I was saying. I think Clear Fork would be a good groove, right? Like
you got Fix over there.
Yeah. You got the Bob's.
I love Fix.
I've never been there.
Oh my gosh. Just go and eat the biscuits all day long. Don't get anything else. Just eat biscuits.
Yeah. I know I've been a steak joint there once, but I don't remember. But I don't remember. I'm also I'm the worst person for this because obviously this is the part of Fort Worth I'm always edgy on. And then also I just don't really eat steaks. Like if I'm going to spend money, I'm going to sushi, or something like that. So I'm not the right person for this. And, I think Reata could be acting more powerful than it really is in the sense of them leaving. Because I just don't know if people... I think Reata's brand is connected to downtown as much as downtown is connected to Reata. And Reata thinks they can go move to Southside or if they can go move to West, to near the hospital. I don't those people, I don't know. I just don't see that happening. I don't see people great, big steak, cowhide everywhere. Like, this is what I want to eat. Like, they're going to have poke bowls and ramen. That's just what they're doing. Like, that ramen joint right by the hospital, you can't ever go there now because it's so packed. Wabi, I'm always it's absurd. It's popping all the time. And I think, if you put Reata in there, let's say Wabi out, put Reata in, I think it could go good over there because that's actually a pretty good building, and I actually think that's a really cool setup.
I do think with Reata, if I'm them, I'm looking at parking. Anywhere I go, I'm looking at parking, and you know who has decent parking? Clear Fork.
Yeah.
And so I think that has to be a major concern for them because right by in the hospital area, the parking is not necessarily great.
Yeah.
And Stockyards doesn't necessarily have great parking either.
Yeah. Ugh.
So for that, if I were them, I'd be looking at parking as not kidding, a major factor to where I put my next restaurant.
Yeah. We got time. Maybe they're just flexing here and everyone's going to kumbaya at the end of this. And,
well, if that's like I said, I think Reata's playing this perfectly because you got out ahead of this way ahead of it.
Yeah.
So now you have plenty of time to negotiate if things change. You have plenty of time to crowdsource where you want to go. You have plenty of time to start building. If you have to build if you have to renovate a building or construct one from scratch, you got time to do that now.
Yeah. Yo, these comments though on this Star Telegram post are hilarious. They're like, the Basses built a wonderful Sundance Square, but now Sasha Bass is destroying it. The last time I was there, it was a ghost town, and it's not because of COVID. This person is I like this one. They said, Sundance Square management and the Basses are literally slaying the geese that laid the golden eggs for them. Downtown Fort Worth is going to become a ghost town again because if you kill the nightlife and amenities, all those high-priced condos will start becoming vacant and go into foreclosure.
I personally love that comment because the capitalization choices are all over the place.
Yes.
Geese, golden eggs, ghost town, and nightlife and amenities are all capitalized. And I just love comment section grammar is just a personal joy of mine.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens down there, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, let's go ahead and go into wins and losses. We usually start with our losses, so we can end with a win. So what do you got for your loss?
So my loss comes from an article I was reading in a Texas Tribune about some Texas teacher requirements. Texas teachers are going to be required to complete a reading academics class that's going to take them at least 60 hours and could take up to 120 hours. And this is going to be, unpaid additional training that they have to go through, complete on their own time. That's a lot to add on to our teachers right now. We're already seeing teachers leaving the industry at a terrifying rate. The Governor Abbott had to call together a commission to discuss teacher retention. And I don't think this is going to, help that issue. This is required for all people who teach grades K through 3. And I'm just not a fan of throwing additional things on our teachers. It's been a difficult profession over the past few years, and I don't like this additional thing being thrown on them.
How many teachers will still need to take the course is unknown. According to the Texas Education Agency update, nearly 90,000 educators have either started or completed the course as of March 9th. In the same agency update, there is no mention of how many K-3 teachers still need to complete it. The TEA did not respond to questions about the required course or the looming 2023 deadline. Totally agree with you. I know reading scores are down, but pitting more on the teachers is not the answer to how do we solve these problems. So totally agree with you. Now, my loss is in the Fort Worth report. Saw a little story just about Whitley, our judge, and just kind of talking about how he's addressing people. He's talking more, and it was really about how he's now commenting about how radical the Republican Party and the Democratic Party is coming, and he's just talking about how we need to be careful. The country needs to be careful, and we shouldn't have Republican and Democratic campaigning and language in local elections, because local elections, you don't have to affiliate. But I guess it's just my thing about it is that he's been a leader for 26 years. And one of the greatest ways to look at a leader is how did you leave the place once you left, right? And Tarrant County and what we're about to do is a mess. Tim O'Hare is about to be county judge, and that is a very sad life. And that's not cool. And I just think I just am annoyed by it because he talks about how, local elections, you don't have to be a part of a party, or you don't have to, say who you're a part of, but then why have you not ever voted on a Democrat? Show that with your actions. If it's really that independent, then why aren't you voting across the board? You've always voted Republican, and it's just I guess that's just how I'm just you're just saying something about Tim O'Hare when really you should be campaigning for Deborah Peoples. You should be endorsing Deborah Peoples, because it's not about, like you said, Democrat or Republican. And she's more centered. She's more logical. But you won't. But you just complain that the radical right is taking your seat, rather than actually fixing the problem. You're being a whiny loser without doing the things that creates winners. So it's kind of my L.
And this comes off the heels of what Maddie has been saying. And I think there's a big difference between what Maddie and Glenn Whitley are doing, is that Glenn's on his way out.
Yeah.
He's not taking any risk by saying anything like this. Maddie Parker's kind of, making herself a little bit of a target potentially. She's taking a risk and, taking a principled stand. And I think that, like you said, Glenn Whitley, you had a lot of time to do this before now. You could have been a part of this solution. And I mean, who knows? Maybe he will later on.
Yeah.
And when he's just when he's not an elected official and he's just a normal citizen.
Yeah.
But like you said, action is required.
For sure. For sure. All right. So what's your win?
My win, well, I work at TCU, so obviously I'm going to highlight something TCU-esque, and that would be our new football coach, Sonny Dykes. They have opened up football practices to the public for free. You can go watch the team practice. The spring game's coming up on April 22nd. That is going to be open for free. It always is before, but the difference is that they're actually going to play a real game this time. Coach Patterson kind of thought everybody in the world was spying on him, and so those spring games weren't really much of a game. This is going to be much closer to what you would see on like ESPN when they show the Alabama spring game. And I just think this is a good change. It's completely changed the vibes on campus.
Yeah.
It's just a lot more positive. And the openness of this is allowing the community to be a bigger part of the football program. We're talking about bringing like pro sports to Fort Worth. We have a college team that normally is pretty good. And I think this is a great opportunity to bring that community aspect to the team. And I really appreciate the openness and the positive vibes that are coming off the team. So my winner is Sonny Dykes.
Love it. Love it. Well, my win is the Fort Worth Report and their year anniversary. Happy birthday to the Fort Worth Report. They've been kicking butt. Their team has been growing. The stories have been really effective and strong. And I think it's really made Star Telegram step their game up. And so all in all, I just think shout out to the Fort Worth Report. We'll put a link to the Fort Worth Report. If you are at a space, support local journalism, do so because they're doing some great work here.
I completely agree. I'm really thankful for the Fort Worth Report. I love the journalism they do. And I'm really happy to see them, reach that 1 year mark. And I hope they're around for many, many more.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, I think it's been awesome to have you on the pod. I feel like it was a good time and looking forward for more. And it was a slowish news week, but I think we made this a pretty fun pod.
Yeah, well, in the words of PTI, we'll try to do better the next time. But thank you so much for having me on. Jimmy, feel free to hang out in Europe a little while longer. I'll happily take your spot.
There you go. Awesome. Take care, Ryan.
Thanks, EJ.
Follow us like